Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, and this is a very special, different video today. I've put a lot of effort into it, so yeah, I hope it goes well. But this is going to be my Chee'ilth versus Necro video. It's the most work I've ever put into a video, ever, and yeah, I'm really excited. So this is going to be all of the Necro fights that Chee'ilth can either solo or two-shot, so using one revive, getting 50% off. There are a couple of fights that I'm going to include that aren't just the one revive, but I'm not including those in the title or whatever. They're just in case you wanted to take those fights as well. So this is not going to be a Chee'ilth guide, though you might pick up bits on how to play her throughout. I do have plans to make a guide. For now, lots of people have made good guides, and I'll link a few in the description. My favourite is Simula. He's been using Chee'ilth a lot lately as well. And Chee'ilth is just one of the absolute MVPs of Necropolis. I view her as useful as Kate and Shuri, those sorts of champs. And I know that's a big statement, but if you can play Chee'ilth, you can take so many fights in there, and some that one or both of Shuri and Kate can't take. So she's very useful. So my plan in this video, I'm just going to go through all the fights alphabetically and explain the tactic in like a few minute chunks, how to take the fight, and then sync it up with a clip from the fight. It won't be my usual play-by-play, you know how I do in my war videos where I break down exactly what I'm doing at each second, because there's just so much footage. There's about 6 hours of raw footage from all of these fights. But what I will do is I'm going to do this video in 3 parts, and then I'm going to upload all of the raw footage for each specific path of Necropolis in a separate video. So there'll be all the fights Chee'ilth can take on path 1, path 2, all the way to 6. That way you can use this one, learn the strategy, and then in conjunction with the other one, you can see the full fight there. And I hope that's a helpful way of doing it. When I come up against someone who is on one of the 3 trap nodes, so for example, Airwalker, he can be on the Tranquilize, the Evade, or the Thorns in the corner, I'll let you know whether I think Chee'ilth works for 1, 2, or all of them. So of the 29 fights here, 16 are solos, 4 more are fights that I could definitely have soloed if I didn't mess it up, and the remaining 9 are those that I could do in 1 revive, so 50% or more. Not all of these are fights that I would necessarily recommend your average player who's picking up Chee'ilth to use in a run, and even some of them are fights I would consider a bit of a flex, some that I tried very many times to get down, and ones that I wouldn't recommend you necessarily rely on if you're planning out a path. I would sometimes recommend bringing another counter, but just knowing that Chee'ilth can take if you need to, but some of them are a lot harder. So I'll definitely be recommending whether I use her in general for a path. Ultimately, it is your call. You know your skill level, you know how comfortable you are with Chee'ilth, and you can judge how tough the fights look. So that is a call that you'll have to make. So before we get into the fights, I'm just going to do a bit of a preamble on Chee'ilth herself. Like I said, this isn't a guide, but I do want just a quick word, like a TLDR, on how to use her and what she does. I won't include this for the subsequent parts, but I will leave a link to come back to it. So her mediums and her heavy apply bleeds. The mediums apply 1 each, and the heavy applies 3. Her special one allows her to bleed on all attacks. It gives her a grit passive, which gives each attack a 50% chance to bleed, and it also lets her ignore unstoppable. That's occasionally useful in Necro. Her special 2 applies a 50% tranquilize that reduces the ability accuracy of debuffs by 50%. That's very nice as well. There are very often debuffs that you don't want applying to you. But it also, for Chee'ilth, prevents miss, and that is very useful. Her special 3 firstly gives her a vicious passive, which increases the potency of damaging effects, and it also gives you a regeneration buff that heals either missing health or damage taken in a fight, whichever is higher, and it can be used once in a fight. So you can go up to 3 bars of power and throw a special 2, then a special 1, similar to Diablo. Chee'ilth works off a mechanic called Spirit Charges, which go up to 10 whenever you parry or punish a heavy or a special attack. It decreases the Spirit Charge timer, and when that timer runs out, it gives you a Spirit Charge. These charges gives you cleanse passives, allowing you to shrug debuffs, but it also increases crit damage and bleed potency. Bleed potency is the important one. The last thing is that punishing specials and heavies with your heavy pauses all your bleeds for 5 seconds, and that is how to increase your damage with Chee'ilth in a fight. You want to be looking for punishing heavies and specials. She doesn't need her Sig at all for Necro. You can do all of this unduped. It very occasionally comes in handy. For example, she can regenerate some of Hercules' burst damage because it's physical based, but that's not a condition of being able to take the fight. I think one time maybe we used the crit part of it, but because so much of Chee'ilth's damage comes from bleed, it doesn't really matter, and you're not going to be taking her for a bleed immune champion anyway. She just doesn't have the damage range for a long fight like that. As for relics, I would recommend the Black Panther one. It really helps with crits. None of them are necessary. She can do it with any of them. If you only have a 4-star Black Panther and you have a 6-star Valkyrie, for example, I chuck the Valkyrie on because of Relic's importance in Necropolis anyway. You want to be increasing the Necropolis charges, and yeah, you want to use a Relic as often as possible. The last section before I just want to jump into the fights. Why is Chee'ilth so good in Necropolis? What makes her as good as she is? And for me, it's 4 things. She has incredible ramp up damage, which is something that you want for longer fights. She has great short fight damage. If you've been watching my war videos, you'll see that. But when you focus on pausing your bleed and ramping them up via the spirit charges, she gets some insane DPS, and she can take these 7 million health pool fights in 6 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that, depending on the fight. If you manage to pause them, then they just stay up and really, really chunk the opponent down. The next thing is an ability that she has that I didn't mention in the TLDR. She has an ability that when she's blocking an attack, she reduces the opponent's attack to what it was at the start of the fight. And that sounds really weird and confusing, but all it means is that, say a champion has 1,000 attack at the start of the fight, and then they gain a 10,000 fury. They now have 11,000 attack, but if Chee'ilth blocks, the opponent's attack is reduced to that 1,000 at the start of the fight, and they don't benefit from any furies. If it's a well-timed block, it's reduced to 50% of what it was at the start of the fight, so you essentially apply a weakness when you're parrying. But the most important thing is that Necropolis has an attack increase when they get into the second set of charges. I believe it's 200%. And that means that with a lot of other champions, you'll notice that when you get into the second set of charges and you start getting rooted and you start taking these specials on block, you can see 20-30% health just taken away. Like a red goblin special 2 is just going to chunk Kate down. It's going to really hurt and it's going to be really annoying. Chee'ilth acts as though she's in the first set of charges the entire fight. And that just makes it feel really nice when you take a whole special on block and you're absolutely fine. This is a seriously important thing for sustainability in Necropolis, especially if you're in a fight where it starts to go bad in the first set of charges, but you manage to stay alive till the second. Sometimes with a champ like Kate, that would be the end of the run, but Chee'ilth has the sustainability in this game mode to survive. The next thing that is really, really nice for Chee'ilth is that Root actually helps her stay close to punish specials with her heavy to pause your bleeds. And in a lot of cases, you're going to see fights get faster once the Root kicks in. For example, Jubilee. That is one that took me 3 minutes to get the first half down, and it took 1 minute to get the second half down. The Root really helps you punish some specials, and it's a great part of Chee'ilth. And then the last thing is just her breadth of utility. She has so much in her kit. Not all fights are just about her damage. Some of them are about her unstoppable counter. You can use that against Squirrel Girl, for example. Her debuff control, you can use that against IBom with the Tranquilize and the Cleanse. She has a miss counter for fights like Spot. She has Despair, a great synergy with Despair with all the bleeds that you're applying. That's great for Diablo and healing fights like that. She has DOTs, which against Spidey 99, which work really well to get around his resistances, and for Namor, where you just need a DOT to be able to do damage. All of these different parts of her kit helps in different fights. So my generic rotation for fights is just SB3 and then spam SB1, punishing heavies and specials with heavy. You don't need to avoid mediums or combos, because with the grip passive, if you do a 5-hit combo or you do a parry heavy, you have the same amount of expected bleeds due to the way that you get 50% chance to apply on any attack. Focus on punishing rather than just parry heavy, although sometimes I do just parry heavy. It depends how the flow of the fight's going and how you want to play her, but that's my generic recommendation. And just a quick aside, please note that this is pre-rebalancing, so if you are watching in a few months' time, check the description and the pinned comment. I'll update with any changes if her long-form content capability is decreased. And one last thing before we go into the fights, just look how cool this map looks. It's been made by Misty K. I'll leave a link to her socials in the description. We're going to be using this as a transition between fights. You'll see all of the fights so far are grayed out, but as we progress through this series, through this video, we're going to be adding in each fight as we go. Each fight will also have a colour associated with it. If they are red, then that means that it's taking 2 or more revives. If it's amber, then it's going to be taking 1 revive. And then finally, the solos are denoted by green. But sometimes in these fights, I could very well have got a solo, but I mess up. So those sorts of fights are going to be a dark green. And then the pure solos where I actually do solo it are going to be light green. For example, I end on 1% a couple of times and I just mess up. That would be a dark green. And then whenever I do solo fight, it's just going to be the classic light green. But yeah, we're going to jump into Airwalker now. So, Airwalker is a tough fight in Necro. I would go for the SB3, then I would go for an SB2, and then an SB1. The reason for that is that I want to apply the Tranquilize to control some of his debuffs and allow my cleanse charges to stack up a little bit. If you need more cleanse at any time, go back to the special 2 if Tranq falls off. However, you really want to be spamming SB1s in this fight. A few debuffs getting through doesn't matter. You want to be spamming SB1s because you want to be knocking down Airwalker so much. If you don't knock him down, he'll gain his Power of Galactus buff, he'll go unstoppable, he'll heal, and it's really not great. However, with Chi's grip passive, she can ignore the unstoppable, and with all her bleeds, she can counteract the healing. So overall, it's not the end of the world if he gets his buff. You don't need to quit out or anything like that. Focus on knocking down, like I said. You can use the striker to get a nice heavy without having to parry or anything, or you can just parry heavy depending on trap nodes. And the last thing I'll say is Chee'ilth has quite long special durations, so just plan that in when you're knocking down. She's not like Kate where you're going to be doing a special within a very short amount of time and you can reliably get the special off. Because it's a bit longer, just plan that in when you do want to knock down. This is a fight where the root really helps. It's not possible to punish his special attacks in general or in the first set of charges, but when he roots you, he keeps you close enough so that you can dex the second hit of his special 1 and you can heavy straight away. Chee'ilth has an incredible heavy reach. She will reach and you'll be able to pause. It means that the root phase will probably go faster than the first phase. For me, the first 50% of Airwalker took about 5 minutes and the second took about 2 because we could just pause our bleeds and keep it going. So Airwalker is one with 3 trap nodes. The Tranquilize trap node is probably the best one for Chee'ilth versus Airwalker. It means that you need to watch out for your parries and your bleeds not sticking. Try and avoid parrying when you can. But if you don't have a Tranquilize on you and you need to go for a parry heavy, you can. This is one where you really want to focus on specials and occasional strikers into heavies to knock down. You need to be really on it, but it's fine. The evade one is tougher because you can't medium. However, you will just be able to parry heavy and get through it. And then you can, during the root phase, keep on parry heavying. Just got to be really on it when you don't want to be dashing in and using a medium attack because you will eventually get evaded. There's a 50% chance. The last one is the Thorns in the Corner. I probably wouldn't recommend using that one unless you literally don't have another option. Other options that are good are Kate and Absorbing Man. They can both work. If you literally don't have another option, Chee'ilth will be able to work and you'll be able to back off and just do heavies, but it will be a bit of a potion and item sink. She will work with a few revives if your only option, and I would definitely recommend this for anyone planning a run. Just be careful of the last trap node that I mentioned there. Next up is Captain America Infinity War. This is a very easy fight with Chee'ilth. The only thing you really need to watch out for, well, there's two things. You need to watch out for him shrugging bleeds during his skill phase. The way Cap works is that he cycles through his signature ability and gains the benefits of it. So, you know, he'll gain kinetic potential after throwing a special or nullifying a buff, and he can well-time block and put petrifies on you. But, you know, it doesn't matter. The only one that you need to watch out for is the skill. He'll just purify debuffs then. The other thing is that if he throws a special at 5 kinetic potential, he'll apply a concussion to you. Chee'ilth has very strong debuff control, so no issues there. I would just special 1 spam, punish his heavies, punish his special 1, dex special 2. And yeah, no, it's a really simple fight. It can be done with every combination of traps. The no dex, you just have to be careful of his specials. If you really want to avoid it, you can just not throw your own specials. It may be a little slower, but a little safer. Just watch out for the not being able to dex. The indestructible, when the opponent dashes at you, doesn't matter. It just slows you down a tiny bit. And then the last one is an auto block when you use the same combo ender as last time. Just use a different one. Chee'ilth doesn't really finish your combos too often, especially in Necropolis. You're doing a lot of heavies, but if you do a medium, I would advise the next combo you do, make sure you chuck a light on the end of it so that it's reset, and you know your normal combo ender of a medium is ready to be used so you don't get auto blocked. So the root makes his special 1 a little trickier to deal with. There's 3 attacks in quick succession. What I tended to do was just block the final hit and punish for the pause. It is quite tight timing. Sometimes you won't get the pause, but it's fine. It's a fine fight. I would recommend this for any run you're going to be doing on the left-hand side. The next fight is Diablo. She can do this one as well. This is one of the toughest fights in Necro because there's just so much going on, but it's very doable with Chee'ilth. It's more about fighting Diablo's specific node than using Chee'ilth herself. So light attack will cycle your current ingredient, and you need to end with a medium to brew the ingredient that he's asked you to brew on the right side of the screen. Once you've done that, you need to dash back and hold block for a certain amount of time to consume that ingredient. If you don't do this within the timer, you lose 15% of your max health. It's not that bad, but in a fight where there's as much going on as a Necropolis fight, it can be a lot to deal with. You will need Despair for this fight. It's not possible without. You need to counteract the healing. His special 1 is very easy to punish. When he drinks his potion at the end, that also counts as a special animation. So what I tended to do, and you'll see in this clip, is I'll dex the special and then I'll do 4 light attacks or 3 light attacks, whatever gets me close enough, and I'll do a heavy. Because it's still the special animation, it counts as pausing your bleeds, and it's probably the easiest time you're ever going to have actually managing to pause your bleeds. It's also nice because during this drinking animation, you won't lose any Necropolis charges because it is a special animation. You want to be keeping up your debuffs in this fight really strictly, otherwise he's going to start regenerating. Make sure that you're doing mediums and heavies and special 1s. And definitely learn the order of light attacks and how it switches the ingredient that you're currently on. I got to a point where I could, most of the time, because like I said, there is a lot going on, most of the time I could figure out if I needed to do a medium light medium to brew or medium light medium to brew. This is tough and I don't get it right every time. If you mess up one of the brew, you can just repeat with the actual one that you wanted to do, so it's not a big deal. In this fight, I get 70% of it down. It's definitely doable with 1 revive. And the nice thing is that you don't need to solo. Like Gilly 99, for example, if you're bringing her for Diablo, you need to solo. With Chee'ilth, you can just get up your Despair, counteracting of healing, and go back in with another revive. The last thing that I would say is learn his phases, because he has a phase 1, 2, and 3, and that changes how you consume ingredients. So in phase 2, you need to hold block a little bit longer to consume. And in phase 3, there's a delay between when you use the medium to brew and when you can dash back and hold block to consume. So as for whether I'd recommend this fight, it's a tough one because this is a really tough fight. Chee'ilth can do it, and she'll be able to do it with revives because you can just revive and jump back in. He won't regenerate as long as you have Despair. but I also would recommend considering a counter here. If you really back yourself with Chee'ilth, she can absolutely do it, don't stress. But there's a lot going on in the fight, so a reversal champion like Sandman or Void is very useful if you can path them on your whole run. Bear in mind that she can do it, but consider a counter. So Hercules is up next. Firstly, I'd really just advise learning how to do the fight. Sounds a bit obvious, but needs to be said. It's quite complicated, but it's not that bad when you're in the fight. So every time you finish a special, you give him a protection. You can remove these protections by either intercepting him, doing a hit of the heavy when Hercules isn't stunned, or interrupting his heavy with anything other than a heavy, so a special, a medium, or a light. In phase 2, he'll gain a protection after one of his specials as well, and in phase 3, you can't use the same way of removing a protection the same way twice. For example, if you both throw a special and he has 2 stacks of protection, you can't intercept twice to get rid of both of them. You have to intercept once and punish his heavy with a medium once. I tended to focus on the intercept and landing a hit of the heavy when he's not stunned, because if you're trying to make him throw a heavy, it means you're block baiting, and that really chips you down in this fight. One thing you can do is that because Chee'ilth doesn't really rely on her specials, you can just not throw a special and it removes 1/2 of how he gets protection. So that is definitely something you can do. It's like the trap node for Captain Infinity War, where I said that you don't have to throw a special and Chee'ilth will get it down. It just might lose you a little bit of damage. Definitely something you can do if you don't feel like you're controlling the protection as much as you'd like. And this might be a really good thing to use in the last phase, in the 3rd phase, where it's harder to remove the protections in the first place. So Hercules does have 50% reduced bleed potency, but with the way that Chee'ilth scales throughout the fight, and with the way that the game deals with increases and decreases the potency, Chee'ilth gets an extra 150% from her spirit charges, and she gains an extra 30% from her vicious passive. So I believe instead of the usual 280% potency, it's only, in quotes, 230%. So you still get a really nice chunk of extra damage, and it doesn't feel like you're doing any less because of it. Another thing that Chee'ilth has to deal with Hercules is her cleanse. It's really nice to deal with that annoying infuriate that keeps on getting applied to you, and whenever Herc dashes back, you're just going to shrug it off. No need to worry at all there. You can punish Hercules' heavies and specials with your own heavy to pause bleeds. It's very easy in this fight, but when you get to the rooted phase, both of his specials are very difficult to deal with. The dex is very tough to do over and over again, and as you're going to see, that's what kills me in the end. I preferred pushing him to special 2. I felt like the timing was a little bit easier, and also then you're only baiting out 1 special instead of 2. If it hits you, it's probably going to kill you. You can punish with a heavy though. And I would be absolutely fine recommending people to use Chee'ilth here. She's a very good option for Herc. I managed to get off about 70%, 60%, something like that in this run. So I think 1 or 2 revives is definitely reasonable. Next up is IBom, and this was another solo for Chee'ilth. The way to approach this fight is that whenever IBom throws a special 1 at 12 poisons, he's going to apply an acid burn to you. It doesn't do much damage, but it does make him go unblockable, which is bad. What you want to do here in this fight is go for special 2 for Tranquilize. That reduces the ability accuracy of his debuffs as well, and it will stop him applying as many poisons to himself. It's not quite enough to control it the whole time as well, because eventually he's going to get to 12. So what I would do is push him to special 2 as well, and then you want him to have Toxic Aura on to remove most of his poisons. It's quite a balance in this fight. You need to balance a lot of stuff. You need to balance your cleanse charges, your tranquilize, his specials, his poisons. You want to make sure you have enough cleanse and tranquilize to counteract the poisons that are being applied to you. You will take some chip damage, some will get through at some point, but for the most part, she can handle it very well. You want to balance his poisons. You don't want to let him throw a special if it's going to get him at 12. And you also want to balance his toxic aura. You want to push him to special 2 anytime it drops off and anytime the poisons get high enough. What I tended to do was bait special 1s between the special 2, and then I'd go back to baiting another special 2. It is possible to get into a loop where you don't get any acid burn on you at all. You might get one at the start of the fight depending on how it goes. And I think the most important thing here is, in most of my attempts for this, I think I did 3 or 4, I started off by going for a special 3, or I went for one special 2 and then a special 3. It can be really tempting because you want the vicious passive, but I found that whenever I went for the special 3, I just lost all control of the fight and I ended up dying or close to it. So don't get lulled into a false sense of security. Stick with the special 2 spam. It'll be a little slow because you don't have the vicious, but you'll be in control of the fight, and the solo is definitely possible. You'll also just have an all-around better attempt if you keep the fight under control. His special 1 is really easy to punish with a heavy, so that can really help you pause your bleeds. In the root phase, the special 1 will go into your block every time, and poisons may sneak through here because it makes it a little bit more difficult to deal with, but overall it's really not that bad, and you can just keep on punishing specials. I would definitely recommend this fight, especially because it's early on in the path. It's just the second fight in. It is tough with Chee'ilth, and I would probably recommend, before you starting your run, take a team in and take Jubilee down a few times if possible, practice on IBom, and then when you know the fight, commit to the run. Next up is Jubilee. This is absolutely my favourite solo I got in the whole of Necropolis. It's one of the toughest fights I did, and if it were any deeper in Necropolis, I would definitely not advise you using Chee'ilth for this. However, because it's the first fight, you can just chuck yourself at it as many times as possible. If you get the solo, great. If you get a good run, great. It's very tough to get your head around though. This took me a fair few attempts. So the way Jubilee works is that she cycles her colour mode with light attacks, and that cycles through block or whiffing. Whenever she throws a special, she gets a corresponding effect from that basic hit. This is her firework surge, I believe. Each of these colours have a basic attack associated with it. Blue is medium, pink is light, orange is heavy. If you do anything other than that attack, any other basic attack, it will give her 100% of a bar of power, or if you dex a special during this firework surge, it will also give her 100% of a bar of power. However, on your side of the equation, whichever highlighted basic attack it is, that specific attack will gain 200% attack, and that attack applies to Chee'ilth's bleeds as well. So in this fight, you really, really want to be sticking in either the medium mode or the heavy mode, so that's blue or orange. I would recommend the orange. That is a lot better. It means you get the heavy pause, and also the blue mode reduces your defensive ability accuracy, so parrying can get a lot harder. If Jubilee ever throws the mode that you don't want, like the light mode, or if you want to keep her out of medium, you can just bait a heavy and she'll remove her own phase. My biggest warning in this fight is absolutely do not block the last hit of a special. It will apply a debuff through your block, and whenever that debuff expires or is shrugged, it does a massive chunk of your health, and that is all around bad. And then also, obviously, you don't want to be dexing 2 hits of her special 2, for example, or all 3, because that'll give her a massive chunk of power. You can outrange a lot of it during the first set of root charges, but in the second set, there's a specific way to do it, and I'm sure I'll show that shortly, and I'll go through it in a second. But what you're aiming to do in this fight is you really want to get into a chain during the heavy phase, so the orange, where you keep Jubilee throwing her special 1. This means you can parry heavy, or you can counter her special with a heavy, and just keep the attack bonus, apply them to your bleeds, pause the bleeds, and yeah, it's really, really nice. So in the first set of root charges, you can outrange the special 1 without dexing it, and you can dex the first hit of the special 2 and outrange the next 2. In root phase is a little bit difficult. You'll need to block the first hit of special 1, and that's very important, and then dex the second. That will give her a bar of power, and it means that you get into a little loop of baiting special 1 over special 1, and then she'll get to special 2, And then when rooted, you need to block the first 2 hits of the special 2 and dex the last one. If you dex both of the first 2 hits of her special 2 during root, the last hit is either going to go into your block, in which case you get a debuff and that's bad, or you're going to have to dex the last hit and she'll go to special 3, which is worse. But as you can see, you can get into a very nice loop where you're just either outranging or dexing the hits of her special, you're stacking on bleeds, and she just goes down incredibly fast. This fight will go slow in the first set of charges. You're just trying to get off any health you can in the first set, and then you're planning on going crazy in the second, where you can punish her special 1 or special 2 over and over and over in heavy mode to apply disgusting amounts of bleed. I did the first 50% in about 4 minutes, and then the rooted phase kicked in, and I did 4 million damage in 1 minute. That is a large part because of the easy to punish specials and the 200% attack. Don't expect this in other fights. It was a really, really cool interaction, and I loved being able to do this fight. You can get into this loop in the before root set of charges. It's more difficult without the root locking you in place, but if you go a little bit further back to the clip when I was doing it in the first phase, sometimes her special 1 does just drop right in front of you. It has bad range, it feels like it's going to hit you, but sometimes just 1 dash back will leave you in position to punish the special. And as I said before, if this wasn't the first fight, I wouldn't recommend it. Because it's the first fight, give it a go. It's tough, there's a lot of mental concentration in the fight, but if you get it down, it's a great feeling and it's a fun fight to do. Next up is Kraven. So, Kraven will be throwing special 2s a lot, and when he does that, he places a trap behind you. That's his Necropolis specific node. His special 1 places one in front of you. That's his kit, and because of those 2, it makes this a real space battle in the arena. It's tough to do, it is a hard fight. It's going to chip your health down because you're eventually going to get trapped, and that just takes some health off you. It also applies a suppression. Don't stress about this. I did my first run with Chee'ilth on this path. I got suppression. I got the cross fight for the next 5 fights. It made no difference whatsoever. You'll see occasionally in this video, you'll see that suppression on there. That's from this run, and it made no difference. I managed to get solos even with the suppression. Chee'ilth doesn't need her specials that much. This very much could have been a solo. At the end, you're going to see him throw a special 2 into my block. As I was about to tick him out, I think he had, a matter of thousands of health left, which would have been a few seconds of bleeds at that point, and it was very frustrating. It's definitely possible to solo. Don't expect it, though. It's very AI dependent and match dependent. It's a really tough one because you're just going to be taking a lot of block damage. The way that I would recommend you doing it is pretty much just baiting heavies, punish with a heavy, try and push him to special 2. You're punishing heavies over and over again will pause the bleeds and get him down. This is definitely one. It's not going to roadblock you unless you just despise fighting Kraven and can't do it. But I think Chee'ilth is as good an option as anyone you're going to find here. Her cleansers remove both of the roots. So with an option like Kate or Shuri, you're going to have to deal with a root anyway. But because it's a debuff, Chee'ilth shrugs them and you can just carry on straight away with the fight. You will still get the suppression and the damage despite removing the root, but it's no big deal. His heavy is very easy to counter with your own heavy, but you will take chip damage throughout the fight, so I definitely advise healing to full on this one. This is an easier fight. I definitely recommend using Chee'ilth with it. If he does throw a special 1, ideally you have your own special 1 to deal with the root. This is a way to remove the trap. Chee'ilth moves quite far forward in her special, and if you move through a trap during a special animation, you ignore the trap. You disable it, I think. But it is always hard to know exactly when he's going to be throwing a special 1. So sometimes you're going to be stuck with a trap behind you and a trap ahead of you. You're kind of in a bit of a bad situation there. There's not much you can do aside from just eating the trap damage. And there you see Kraven deny me the solo at 1% health. Very, very frustrating. Next up is Mantis. This is a fight anyone can do. I'm not saying you should specifically plan Chee'ilth for this one, but she does have a couple things that make her maybe slightly better than other options for this. She has a really nice light reach for an intercept, and reducing the attack via her blocking ability during the second set of charge is very nice for extra sustain, especially because you're going to be block baiting a lot of heavies from Mantis. You reduce the attack rating while blocking, so it just makes her a little bit more sustainable in this fight. What you got to do is basically play Mantis like you are playing Mantis. She has a sort of oscillate node where she goes from aggressive to defensive. In the aggressive node, you need to intercept her, and that takes off a burst of health, or you punish a heavy, and that also takes off a burst of health. In the defensive mode, you just need to hit her block, let her dash back, hit her block again. Really try and avoid her throwing a special one. She's very irritating like that. There's two ways you can kind of deal with it. I think I'd do the first one here. You can use your specials to push her to the next bar of power. So for example, if she's on just below a bar of power, a full 5-hit combo into special 2 is going to push to special 2. Then you can bait that. Or if you want to do it in a different way, you can throw your special 3 at the start of the fight, which then disables your special 3. And then you can just hold on to your power the entire fight, so that if she ever does throw a special 1, you've got a special 2 which can be followed up with a special 1 straight away to get rid of the encroaching sleep at the right time. So I don't think the solo is possible for this one. I don't think there's enough charges for it. It's quite a slow fight, but it's definitely possible in one revive. I got 62% in this run, although I messed up the first run and got only 38% off, which is why I start this fight at 62% and then I solo from there. I get her down with about 30 charges left, so probably could do a little bit more, maybe up to 70%, but I definitely recommend Chee'ilth for this one. She works very well for it, as the reasons I mentioned before. And on to Mr. Fantastic. So, this is a tough one. I don't think the solo is possible, but Chee'ilth definitely works as an option, and she actually works for some fights subsequently on the path as an option as well. And also, you might be going into section 2 and doing a different path where Chee'ilth is very useful, and if you don't have an option for Mr. Fantastic, Chee'ilth absolutely works for it. So the trap node is what makes this really difficult, not being able to hit in the corner. If it were possible, I think this solo is easy. To deal with a trap node, you're going to be needing to dash back a lot, and then heavying. It really slows your tempo and you waste so many charges, but if you're hitting in the corner, you're just going to die because of the damage back. So this is the best way that I found to be able to consistently get 50% off. I did throw SB1s. I didn't need the Tranquilize. I had Cleanse to deal with it. Obviously go for the special 3 at the start of the fight to increase your bleeds. I think you really want to just not let him throw 3 of the same special in a row, or he gains more combat power, and that just makes him a bit more annoying. So I ended up baiting 2 of each special, or, if he throws 1 after only throwing the other once, it's absolutely fine. No worries there at all. One thing to note is, for some reason, not all relics avoid the damage in the corner, and Black Panther is one that takes damage back. So for this run, I'd probably switch to a Valkyrie or a Winter Soldier. I'm pretty sure those ones don't take damage back, but just check that to be sure. I got very frustrated with this fight at the end of it. At the last second, I do quit out when he goes red after the charges. He just wasn't throwing a special 2 and I got annoyed. But you can tell that I just didn't really want the solo. I just wanted the 50% and I was happy with it. You can definitely get more damage off than 50%, but I'd reached that milestone and I was fine leaving it. So last one for this video is going to be a kind of solo. You'll see what I mean at the end, but this is definitely possible to solo with Chee'ilth. And I was really proud of this one. This was a tough one to do. I wouldn't bank on getting the solo. It gets very tough to manage. And I think I got a little bit lucky with the AI at times. Weirdly, Chee'ilth works way better for this Namor than for Mr. Fantastic, despite having class advantage in one and disadvantage in the other. So his specific node is that you only need a damaging effect to do damage. And apart from that, it's just a chunky, unduped Namor. There is the trap node again. It's frustrating, but it's not as bad as Mr. Fantastic. And that's because Namor's specials take up so much room that it helps you manage the space on the arena without having to dash back a ton. You will occasionally need to do it just by flow of the fight, but in general, you can manage space by just baiting his specials anyway. You can heavy counter both his special 1, special 2, and heavy, so if you wanted to before you went into the fight, definitely practice that. The Imperious Rex really helps when he goes into it, because firstly, you don't need to bait special 3, he can't throw it. But it also helps you punish more specials to pause bleeds more often. So instead of baiting out a special 1, punishing it, and then he's on, half a bar of power, in Imperious Rex, he'll throw a special 2, you'll punish that. He'll throw a special 2, you'll punish that. And then he'll throw a couple special 1s and you'll punish those. And it just means that you're keeping up all of those bleeds constantly. You could get into a loop where there's no downtime on the pause, and you can just stack up some really nice damage. The real tough part of this fight is the root. When you get to the root phase, you can't let him throw special 1s, especially not in Imperious Rex. It's just going to chunk you down through the block. So during Imperious Rex, Namor gains not attack rating, he just does more special damage, which is not something that Chee'ilth's block ability can counteract. So if he throws a special 1 into your block during Imperious Rex, it's really going to hurt. So during the root phase, you want to keep pushing to special 2 when possible. You can time Imperious Rex for this quite nicely. Say, for example, he was on 25 and he was on just below a bar of power and you wanted to push him to special 2. Wait for a second, parry a couple times, he'll go into Imperious Rex and then he'll be at 3 bars of power, throw a special 2 because he power drains himself, and yeah, it's a nice way to avoid special 1. You can also bait heavies during Imperious Rex because that gives him a burst of power and gets him back up to special 2, or you can just keep on heavy baiting because the attack rating will be reduced through block. You can just keep on baiting heavies and just punish those. He's going to keep on power draining himself and not quite enough to get him to 0 power. So if you just keep on baiting heavies, eventually he will get to 0 power, but you can get like 5, 7, something like that heavies off all in a row without him needing to throw a special because he keeps on power draining himself. And like I said before, the special 2 is a lot easier to dex rooted, so I'd definitely push him there. And the reason I said that the solo is possible but it relies on the AI a little bit is I go beyond the charges in this fight. In the first and second set of charges, so the normal fight, I get him down to about 20%, and then we spend a good chunk of time beyond the charges and trying to get him down the rest of the way. It gets a lot more difficult to manage his power when he's unblockable, though he does gain power over time when you're out of striking distance, so you can use that to your advantage. You can also use Imperious Rex to give him power and then power drain him. You can use the striker between 1 and 2 bars of power because, like I said before, and especially now, you're still rooted, so the whole goal is to push him to 2 bars of power instead of baiting out special 1, because if he throws 1 special 1, you're dead. It's unblockable, it's going to kill you. Using the striker also gives him 6 more charges, Necropolis charges, so he will stop being unblockable and stop gaining power. So that is something you can use as well. Like if you get stuck where he's about to throw a special 1, you could use a striker and give him some more charges, bait out the special 1, but like I said, if you don't have much health, that's probably going to kill you anyway. And yeah, I just guess look at what I'm doing in this fight and try and notice how I'm controlling his power, trying to get him to special 2. And then, yeah, it's good fun. I really enjoyed it. I got very close, and as you're about to see, I make a stupid decision, and I dash in to try and get an intercept to finish off the fight when I really didn't need to, and he special intercepts me and kills me. I literally just should have let him go into Imperious Rex one more time. I should have waited a little bit. I should have, there's a lot of things I should have done, but the solo is possible. It's tough. She can definitely do this in 1 revive. But that's the end of part 1. I wanted to do all of this as one video. but we're only a third of the way through, and this has already been about 45 minutes of me talking. So yeah, I don't want to make you watch a 3-hour long video or whatever it'll end up being. Keep an eye out for the next part. I'll be hoping to do these, every few days, something like that, maybe a week between them, we'll see. And then after that, obviously look out for the raw footage of all of the path fights. I'm really looking forward to these. Please share them around. It takes a lot of effort to do this. There is a lot of Necropolis fights that I've had to do to get to these fights, and I would appreciate any shares, likes, comments, and everything like that. I don't usually ask for them, but I'd really, really appreciate it. But yeah, let's spread the word and get people appreciating just how good Chee'ilth is. She is probably my favourite champion in the game right now. I love her to bits. But yeah, that'll do it for this one. Keep an eye out for part 2. I will catch you then. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you later. Cheers.